There's an urban myth that says the average person will swallow 8 spiders a year while they sleep. The crunch they make is the worst part, but she said I would get used to it, and I did. Sometimes their legs get stuck in my gums, and I won't be able to pry them out for days. It keeps me occupied. When I was younger and stupider, I was terrified of the idea of it. I can't remember where I heard it first, but from then on it was all I thought about, and occasionally it would keep me up until the early hours of the morning until I either slept with my face in the pillow or had to go to work. I didn't sleep for nearly 3 days once, but then I started to see little black spiders out of the corner of my eyes, and when I woke up in hospital, they told me I was going to die. I had about a year left. 8 spiders. They said I had an incurable neurodegenerative disease, and by the way he looked at me, I could tell the doctor was shocked I hadn't died already. They told me I had holes in my brain, and the holes were going to get bigger and bigger, and that there was nothing they could do. I didn't really say anything, and then the doctors left to get my family from the crowded waiting room down the hall after they'd gone over the whole thing with me a couple more times. That's when I saw her. She was small and black like buttons on a funeral suit cuff. 6 little beads of onyx rested atop her head like a crown. Her legs carried her with an air of royalty as she manipulated each stalk of slender chitinous elegance one after another as she crawled along my skin. She wanted me to know she was there. I remained still as she crawled up my arm and onto the itchy, wafer-thin hospital gown draped across my shoulder. She told me not to be frightened, and I listened to her because I knew something this beautiful could never lie to me. She promised she would help me. She said if she could crawl into my ear and live inside my skull, she would plug all those holes inside my brain with her webs. I thought she was crazy, but I agreed. It's been 6 years since then, and the only things I miss are hot dogs and my mother. Most of the time she's busy because the holes keep getting bigger and bigger, but whenever she has time to spare, we chat for a bit. Most of the time she talks about how hungry she is, and I tell her it's getting harder and harder to find more spiders nowadays since I'm barred from the pet shop and the shed collapsed. I thought it was a little weird at first that a spider would want to eat other spiders, but I Googled it, and apparently they eat each other all the time. Even the baby spiders, they're called spiderlings, do it. I thought that was gross too, but she told me it wasn't, and that it was beautiful because it was family you were eating, and after you ate them, they were a part of you, and you were a part of them, and you both became something more. Then I told her I understood, and I realized that it was beautiful, and she was right. She's right about a lot of things. She tells me she's excited because soon we'll be family as well. I think I'm excited too. I know how that makes me sound. Like one of those people who let mold grow on a loaf until it looks like a green lawn and then call it art. But you didn't see how she moved when she first went inside. The nurses were arguing about insurance at the desk, their shoes squeaking on laminate. The fluorescent lights hummed that migraine hum. I tilted my head like a kid trying to pour water out of his ear after swim class, and she slipped in, a warmth like a match struck next to the eardrum. I heard a string being pulled tight in the back of my head, and the world stopped skipping like a scratched CD. The holes were still there. She never lied about that, but the edges weren't crumbling anymore. I promised her food. She promised me time. Anyone who's been told 1 year learns how to hoard moments the way hillbillies hoard glass jars. At first, I collected spiders like a freak. It was easy. The house had rotten corners and a basement full of cardboard. I'd shake gates and railings outside apartment blocks with a bucket underneath, like a lunatic. I kept notes because she liked order, and honestly, order kept me from thinking about my mother's voice going thin over the phone and then not going anywhere at all, just the dial tone that ran so long it turned into a solid sheet of sound. You want rules? Fine. I wrote them down on a yellow Post-it and stuck it on the fridge because I kept screwing up and she hated it when I heard her. My handwriting looked like I'd been writing with a broken pencil wedge between my toes, but I could still make letters. She told me to title the Post-it Operational Notes because she liked the word operational. It made us sound like we were running a program instead of sickness. Rule 1. Do not use cotton swabs in the right ear anymore. Rule 2. If silk threads gather behind the teeth, do not drink water until they dissolve. Rule 3. Never count past 8 when you feed her, even if you have more. Rule 4. If the smell of oranges shows up, leave the room and wait exactly 3 minutes. Rule 5. Don't say her name out loud. She doesn't like how it sounds in air. Rule 6. If you wake up with webbing over your eyes, blink slowly. Don't pull. Rule 7. Keep the bathroom mirror covered after 3 a.m. Back then, Rule 4 looked stupid. Oranges? My apartment smelled like dust and bleach and the stubborn leftovers of other people's lives baked into baseboards. The deception was Rule 1, though. Everyone says don't shove things into your ear. Doctors love that lecture. It felt safe, obvious, kindergarten safety videos. It wasn't, but I'll get there. I taped that Post-it to the fridge door near the cracked magnet from a hot dog stand my mother took me to when I was 11. We went after a dentist appointment because the drill scared me so bad I shook. The stand had a stupid mascot with eyes like pills. I haven't had a hot dog since I met her because she hates the nitrates, says they make the web brittle, and the smell of onions confuses the silk. You'd be surprised what smell does to silk. I'll tell this straight and I'll tell it fast, and when I slow down, it's because something deserves it. I went back to work after the hospital because what was I going to do? Sit in bed and rot? My job wasn't glamorous. Night custodian at the phone company office. 3 floors of cubicles, a server room that breathed like a sleeping dog, the lobby with 3 spider plants wilting around a stone fountain that never worked. Spider plants. I know. Everyone thought that was funny when they learned what lived in my head. People are so fucking predictable. The first night back, the dispatch radio cracked on my belt, and Garrett, the dispatcher, said, "You good?" Same tone he used when a toilet backed up. I said, "Spotless," and the static hissed like someone whispering through teeth. She hated the radio, too. Said the little pulses knocked the threads loose. So I took the batteries out every chance I got and pretended I missed calls. I wore ear protection like I was supposed to, not for OSHA, but to keep draft from stirring her up. In the stairwells, I could hear her combing silk with her back legs, hear the little guitar note it made. She told me numbers. She's all about numbers. 8, she said. 8 is a mouth opening and a mouth closing. It's infinity wearing a gag. Her humor doesn't always land when I repeat it. It lands great when it's inside my skull. Finding spiders wasn't hard until it was. Winter dried the corners. The pet shop owner, a woman named Jo who wore 2 pairs of glasses at once, one on her eyes and one on her head, started asking why I needed so many feeder spiders when I didn't own a reptile. I told her I liked the company. She said, "They cannibalize, Han," like it was a warning. I said, "I know," and I smiled too wide, and that's how you get barred. Incident report, she called it, and I still have the pink copy because I keep everything now. Subject attempted to purchase an unusual quantity of arachnids. Behavior erratic. Possible self-harm risk. Self-harm. As if I had to try anymore. They handed me the paper like a parking ticket, and I folded it and slid it into the magnet under Hot Dog Man on my fridge. It sat right under the rules like it belonged. So I had to improvise. Then the shed collapsed and took my last stash with it. The shed didn't fall through rot. That would be too easy. It fell because the landlord sent a crew to knock it down without telling me, and I heard their hammers as something you feel through your shoes more than hear. And by the time I got downstairs with the Tupperware and my apology smile, the men had already crushed the little corners where the orb weavers hung their mornings. One of the men said, "We did you a favor. These things are like roaches," and my hands curled by themselves. And she said, "No," very quiet, and my hands uncurled. I started walking alleys with a flashlight and a jar. I talked to dumpsters. I whispered to drain pipes. There's a trick to coaxing them. You breathe on the corner where the web joins the bricks. Warmth is weather. Weather means bugs. The little bodies quiver and then they come. Nerves like piano wires. Eyes that can't see you but can feel your shadow. They came. I thanked them. Sometimes I screwed up. Sometimes I took a beetle home by mistake, and she was very gentle when she said, "Not that one, love," and I felt the pinch in my ear like a reminder to read the Post-it again. You think this is too much detail. It's not. The details matter because they keep me from drifting. I did okay for a while. 6 months. A year. She knitted a net that pressed soft against the insides of my head. Some mornings I woke up and my tongue felt coated with sugar. That's how you know she's been at work while you sleep. Give me 8 every week, she said, and the number stuck because it had always been stuck. 8 makes a ring. I said, sure, and I kept count on a legal pad with boxes. Each box a pair of legs drawn stupidly like a child with a crayon. The legal pad lived on the counter under the post-it and the incident report. My kitchen looked like the desk of a clerk with a very niche job. You learn someone's moods when they live inside you. She hates moths because the dust on their wings gums the combs on her legs. She loves wood lice, pill bugs, the ones you called roly-polies when you were a kid because they crunch clean. My gums bled the first times. My dentist asked if I'd been grinding my teeth, and I said, yes, because that's easier than I can't floss because silk is threaded under the gum line like a secret stitch. My mother used to call on Sundays at 10. After the hospital, I stopped answering sometimes because I didn't have updates, and updates were all she wanted. I know that's uncharitable. She wanted her son not to die. I wanted quiet. It got worse right after she died. My cousin said Mom had left a message on my voicemail, the very last. She said, "It's okay, sweetheart," like I confessed to a crime about to get me executed, and I saved it. And then the phone company switched systems and the message evaporated from the cloud like it had never been there. I sat on the kitchen floor and did the stupid thing, the stupid banging on the phone with my fist like a toddler thing, and silk pulled behind my teeth like spit, and she hummed to me until I could breathe. Family is just food in the right order, she said. Not to be cruel, to be true. People mix up those two. The first time the orange smell hit, I was in the lobby at work buffing the tile. It was 3 in the morning and the city outside was a camera shutter opening and closing. The smell came thin at first, like someone had just peeled a clementine 2 rooms over. Then it rolled thick, like the air in the hospital after they wheel a citrus cart around to trick the dying into believing they still have taste buds. Rule 4 kicked open inside me like a fire alarm. I dropped the buffer handle. It clattered like a pan. I walked out to the sidewalk and counted to 180 because that's 3 minutes and my brain needs anchors. Garrett crackled on the radio. I had forgotten to put batteries in. Everything cool. I looked at the glass doors. My reflection looked like a photo of me taken during an accident someone swears they're okay after. If you've ever watched an office at 3 a.m., you know the lobby looks like a terrarium. Houseplants on dumb little stands. The fountain pretending it could be water. After 3 minutes, the smell thinned, and I went back in. On the floor where the buffer had stopped, the pattern in the dust looked like the negative of a web, as if someone had laid a net down and then taken it up clean. She said nothing, and that's how she says, pay attention. Weeks later, I learned the smell meant pesticide. The exterminator's schedule. They had hired a guy with a tank in the basement to stop the ants. The orange was fake citrus in the carrier. If I had stayed in that room, the solvent would have made the silk brittle. Brittle silk breaks. Brittle silk makes holes bigger. Holes make me worse. So Rule 4 wasn't stupid. It was a trigger the way an insulin pump beeps. You can call this insanity if it helps you keep your walls straight, but the walls don't care what you call them. Rule 7 came from a different night. I woke up to pee at 3:12 a.m., shoes half under the bed like a promise I'd break in the morning. The mirror above the sink had a towel over it because she hates mirrors, says reflections can fuse the threads. I'd forgotten to repin the towel after a shower. I didn't notice until I flicked the light. I looked up and saw myself, of course, but also the motion that wasn't me behind the eyes. Not a shadow, not a trick, a stitch running across the whites like a gloved hand pulled a string through. I didn't freak out. You think you would. I didn't. I heard her say, blink slowly, and I obeyed Rule 6 and blinked, and the stitch drew itself back under the lid like a worm that hates the sun. After that, I kept the towel up with a stubby screw through the terry cloth. The towel is yellow. My bathroom looks like a low-budget hostage scene. The deceptively safe Rule 1. The Q-tip rule. nearly killed us both. I got an itch, not a metaphor, a literal itch inside my ear, deep as you can imagine. Imagine the itch being behind the itch. I knew not to. I knew. But sometimes habit takes the wheel like a drunk friend. I put the cotton in, just a little, and the world went white noise and she shrieked. Not in sound, in sensation, like someone poured boiling water in my skull. My right eye flooded. I pulled and the cotton snagged and stayed. "Don't move," she said. And I froze with one hand up like a mummer holding an invisible rope. There are barbs. I could picture it, the way fiber unravels and tangles around the sharp edges of things. I let go and sat down on the toilet lid and leaned until the itch became a pain, and then the pain became her, sewing around the foreign body like a tailor sewing around a stain in a dress. It took until sunrise. When she was done, the cotton sat in the shell of my ear like a little white coffin. I slid it out. The end was moist and gray. I taped that filthy Q-tip under the Post-it as a trophy. Don't touch it. That's what it says without saying it. Garrett called me Spider-Man when he wanted to be funny. "Hey, Spider-Man, get third-floor conference like I had webs I could shoot into people's mouths to shut them up." He's the sort of man who sprays cologne on after he sweats, so the smell holds his morning together like glue. 1-2, and we got in it over the radio because he didn't like that I'd put Exterminator 3:30 a.m. Tuesday orange smell in the maintenance log. "Are you for real?" he said. "Are we logging ghost aromas now? Do you want me seizing on the lobby floor?" I said, "Not because I seize, because it's the kind of phrase that makes people shut up out of superstition." He laughed and said, "You got a doctor's note for citrus?" And I told him to come say that to my face, and he did. By the time he got to the lobby, the orange smell had started again. He made half a joke, then his eyes watered and he said, "Jesus, what is that?" I pointed at the vent. The exterminator's hose looked like a python mouthing the ductwork. Garrett wrote a note in the log afterward. "Aerosolized agent causes irritation." He never apologized. People don't apologize for being wrong when the wrongness is shaped like you. The pet shop incident report got company. I got an envelope at work from Human Resources like they had one, like this building had anything besides desks and the electric heartbeat of servers and a coffee machine that burped sludge. The letter said they were concerned about hygiene because multiple employees had seen me capturing insects on the premises and bringing them home. They didn't use the word spider because someone had a superstition about names. They attached a copy of a policy I'd never seen. I slid that letter under Hot Dog Man too, pinned by the same magnet. The fridge became a shrine to things the world thinks are normal that are not normal in my house. You want more? Of course you do. You're here because you want the part where the rules stop being cute and start being teeth. It was a Tuesday because my legal pad had a Tuesday box with 8 little legs drawn like always. It was raining. Not dramatic rain. Patient rain that soaks gutters. A rain that teaches metal where it will rust later. I had 7 in the jar and needed one more. You know how you bargain with yourself in grocery stores? If there's one more ripe avocado, it means I deserve this. I was bargaining with Allie's. If there's one more under this brick, it means we're good. There wasn't. I went home ready to lie to her and tell her I'd found 8, and she said, "Don't count past 8, like a tap across the knuckles, except I hadn't counted at all. "It's Tuesday," she said. "Don't count past 8, and I realized she meant I wasn't allowed to give more than 8 even if I had more. So rule 3 wasn't about scarcity. It was about not overbuilding. So 2 thick strangles. Too much support turns a web into a wall, and a wall inside your head is called a blockage. We don't want that. I walked inside and the fridge light came on and the Post-it glowed, and I opened my mouth to say I had 7, and she said, "It's okay," in that voice that had comforted me through worse than numbers, and I tipped the jar and coaxed number 8 out on the lip with a breath. She ate. The warmth moved. It felt like a hand smoothing the back of a dog. I exhaled and then the smell hit. Oranges, but softer, not the workplace stuff. This smelled like my mother's kitchen when she baked pound cake with citrus zest once a year like a holiday. It was inside the house. Rule 4. I held my breath and went outside in the rain and counted 3 minutes. When I came back and the smell had no source. The windows were shut. No vents blew. The stove was cold. I stood in the kitchen listening to the refrigerator's throat click on and off. I touched the post because I'm superstitious now and the edges of the paper were damp from steam. I opened the fridge to see if something had spilled. The light blinked and steadied, and that's when I saw the orange peel. I don't keep oranges. I can't. They make the silk brittle. It sat on the second shelf next to the old glass bottle of milk like a ring cut from the planet Saturn. My mother used to twist peel off in long snakes and lay them across the sink lip to dry and then throw them out threaded together like rosary beads. This peel was clean and new and unwilted, and you could see the pores like 1,000 tiny mouths. Did you? I asked. No, she said, annoyed. Please don't confuse me with things that smell like they rot sweet. I stood perfectly still. I listened to the underside of sound. You know, that level where you can hear your heartbeat in your ears. I heard another heartbeat. Not mine, too slow to be mine, applauding. It came from a wall behind the fridge. It came through the cool, white metal like a breath on a glass. I pulled the fridge from the wall and immediately wanted to shove it back because I saw the nest. You expect loops and eggs and something wet. No, it looked like a lost wig made of thread. Someone had been storing lint for a century and then packed it into a crack, shoving and patting, shoving and patting. The orange peel was tucked in like a flag. The smell wasn't pesticide. It was a decoy, camouflage. The heartbeat was pipes. Buildings are animals. I forgot sometimes. Leave it, she said too gently. It's not ours. And that sentence punched me somewhere private. Not ours meant someone else lives here. Someone else wove close enough to smell like us. I don't know why that made me angry, but it did. Territory is a word even people who don't own property have stuck to their tongues. I left it. I slid the fridge back. My hand stung from the metal lip, and when I looked, I saw a line of silk across my knuckle, fine as angel hair. Sorry, I told whoever had made the nest. I don't know if I meant it. My head hummed. You're jealous, she said, and she laughed, and it sounded like teeth bumped a glass. The next night, I dreamed a web that wasn't mine hung across my bed like a canopy someone installed and forgot to tell me about. When I woke, my face was covered with silk like a blindfold. Rule 6. Don't pull. I breathed very slowly and felt the strands soften. They melt with breath. I blinked, and the stinging salt of dried tears cut the silk into threads I could move. When the last thread lifted, a bead of liquid caught my eyelash. It tasted like metal. I turned my head on the pillow and saw the post-it in my mind like afterimage. The rules make a path through panic. That's all they really are. You might think I was hopeless by then. I wasn't. I was almost happy sometimes. There's valence in ritual. My mornings had steps like a dance. Brush teeth carefully. Coffee, weak, because caffeine makes silk too springy. Check legal pad. Feed her. Listen. Go to work. Avoid oranges. Fuck up. Apologize. Sleep. I broke rule 5 once and said her name out loud. It was my fault. I was drunk. Not drunk like blackout. Drunk like the edges of the room felt velvet. I said it into the empty apartment, like I was calling a cat. It's not a human name. It's a word that sits in the throat and makes your tongue flatten in the back and the uvula vibrate like a moth. It unspooled from me like I'd saved it up and wanted to taste my own disobedience. Everything stopped. The fridge motor, the clock tick, the building heartbeat. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Silk drew tight in the skull, like everything was getting cinched. My vision haloed yellow. I went on my knees the way people do when they get bad news in movies, except there was no audience. Don't, I said. I'm sorry. And she let go. Later she said, flatly, vibrations name things. Named things attract attention. I nodded like she could see me nod. She can't. Not really. But she feels it when I move my jaw, because it's her ceiling. You want the mother piece. Everyone does. Everyone wants to know if she did this to me or if her death sharpened all the edges. You want the scene where I tell the truth and make myself look worse so you'll believe the rest. Fine. When my mother was dying, I didn't go to the hospital every day. I told myself I couldn't be useful every day, and if I went on Monday and Wednesday and Friday, I could bring her things and make jokes and have energy to argue with nurses. On the Tuesday in the middle of all that, I stayed home and counted spiders and fed her and watched TV with the volume low. My mother died on a Tuesday. It was morning. A nurse I had scolded for leaving a bruise on my mother's arm called me, and her voice broke in the middle like ice on a lake. I listened to the room noise through the phone, the beep that had stopped beeping, the shoes, the cartwheels, and I put the phone face down on the table and stood looking at the post-it, and I didn't cry because I felt silk tighten like a hand squeeze, and I thought, this is family. It's okay. It is not okay, but I thought it, and that thought lives in me like a grub. You can hate me for that. I do sometimes. Let's move, because if I stay there, I'll get stuck to the truth, and we have other things to talk about. Garrett fired me, in his way. He called it restructuring. I called it, we don't want the Spider-Man in the building. And he shrugged his thick shoulders as if he was about to lift weights. It's not personal, he said, which is the most personal thing anyone ever says. I packed my bucket and my jar and my legal pad, and I took the batteries from the radio, even though the radio wasn't mine. He tried to stop me for the batteries, and I said, "What are you going to do, check?" And he said, "No." And he looked at the ceiling tiles like maybe the law lived up there. I sat on my stoop at home and breathed. It was near dusk, and the building's brick threw shadows on itself like a man throws shade on his past. She said, "We have time." And I said, "Do we?" And she said, "We have as much time as the holes give us." And I had a stupid vision of 8 little mouths eroding my skull like waves erode a pier, and her darning and darning and darning until the pier became all darning and no wood. And I thought, how much of me is silk now? When it got dark, the neighborhood changed. People think city nights are loud. They are, but not the way you think. The loud is 3 blocks over where kids test their cars. My street had a hush that made the smallest sound a performance. I heard the laughter of a couple walking their dog like it was projected from an old tape. I heard the scrape of something in the alley. I heard the tiny guns of rain on the metal lip of the gutter. And I heard the web in the fridge wall again. I wanted to see it up close. Maybe talk to it. Maybe tell it. I get it. I pulled the fridge again and crouched and put my eye to the crack, not because I expected a face. Spiders don't have faces you recognize, but because I expected something and I got something. I got eyes. 6. Beads of onyx stacked like on a crown. Not ours, she had said before. This was hers. It was her here, not in the head. Or a piece of her. One of her daughters? One herself? Names are messy. She didn't speak. At least not the way she speaks when she is inside me. The eyes moved, not all at once, but like the hands of clock you only notice moved if you look away and look back. I put my face nearer, stupid as a kid at the zoo pressing a palm of glass. The twitch of the forelegs said, in body language, in the old way back. So I did. I left the fridge pulled out because I wanted to show respect. I sat down on the floor because my knees had started to tremble, and I told her, mine, inside me, what I had seen. She's not me, she said. And if silk can sound like jealousy, it did. She's a sister. To you, I said. To us, she said after a beat. Maybe. You think that's nonsense. Cool. Put it in your pocket next to your keys. I started leaving little offerings by the crack in the wall. Woodlice. The small spiders I would have fed my queen if I had enough for both. I pretended the fridge was a door I could slide open when I wanted to share. The crown-eyed one took them, never in front of me, always overnight. Thread-built, and built until the gap looked like an occluded artery. I wrote on the legal pad, fridge friend, because names help me pretend things are manageable. Don't name her, the one in my head said, but it was too late. Names stick. Names vibrate. I told you I was barred from the shop, but bans are for people who don't know how to apologize. I went back with a letter written on notebook paper and a box of donuts. Joe looked at both like they were the scalding breath before a fire. She took the donuts. No spiders, she said. They're special order only, and I won't do it. I'll take the ones you cull, I said. We don't cull, she lied. I can pay cash, I lied. You're on a list, she said. It says I should call someone if you come back. Call them, I said. I live in a building that leaks and a brain that leaks. I'm just trying to caulk. That made her smile in spite of herself. I'll give you roaches, she said after a minute. Do you have a bucket? I felt my queen recoil in my ear. No roaches, she said. Please, like I was about to feed her poison. I don't do roaches, I said. Then I can't help, Joe said, and lifted the donut box lid like she intended to eat everyone in front of me. I wrote an incident report on myself that night. Not a real one, a pen one. I copied Joe's format with mock seriousness because ridicule keeps me upright sometimes. Subject attempted to bargain with law of nature. Outcome, failure. Recommendation, patience or theft. I put it under hot dog man with the others. My fridge was a filing cabinet of the life I don't discuss in the doctor's office. You've been patient. Thank you. I owe you the ending, but we aren't there yet, and I don't like to lie to you by jumping. I got sick, not sick like disease. Sick like silk wasn't enough for a week. Headache that felt like a roof sinking in snow. The margins of words on the page drifted. I turned my head and the room lagged. She spun, and I could feel the heat she made with the work, and it still wasn't enough because holes widen the way potholes do. Edges crumble when pressure comes. I need more, she said. I can do more, I said, and thought of Rule 3. Not more, she said. More right. She meant different prey. Bigger. The word bigger in my head felt like it had bones. I tried to cheat. I brought home a wolf spider the size of my palm from the abandoned lot 2 streets over. I coaxed it into a jar with a leaf like luring someone onto a bus bench with a promise of shade. She refused. Not that one, she said the way someone says, not that ring, when you propose with a bad diamond. What? I asked. She has eggs, she said, and in my mind, I saw a soft machine full of pearls. I brought that one to the fridge. The sister took her at night. I woke to the sound of threads tightened in joy. It's good sometimes to be the one who feeds something that isn't only yourself. At 3 a.m., the towel slipped in the bathroom again. I hadn't put the screw back after a wash. Habit kills. I looked up and didn't see my face. I saw Webb, not a reflection of Webb. Webb, on the other side of the mirror. Geometry that shouldn't mirror. I moved my hand and the hand on the other side didn't move. It lazily tested struts like a harpist plucking, a shape collected behind the silk. I don't want to say she. It wasn't my queen, and it wasn't the sister. It was a shape with eyes that weren't beads or crowns. Eyes like someone had drawn circles with a compass and shaded them with pencil. Human. I blinked and the threads of my eyelids tore soft again, and when I opened the mirror, showed my stupid face, and the towel fell, and I pinned the towel back with that screw as if screwing a towel in a plaster could keep the world from having opinions about me. I started hearing tapping in the ceiling at night. Not rats. I know rat movement, the slide with paws as if they're curious about their own paws. This was the careful lay of threads, the tug, the test. The building was becoming a loom. Are you doing this? I asked. We're doing this, she said. I thought you stayed in here, I said, tapping my head. We do, she said. Language is nothing but holes that want web. People think spiders can't love. People are stupid. Love is snacks and safety and a place to anchor your threads. We had all of that, and still the holes widened, because holes don't care about love either. The morning I broke Rule 2, I did it, because I was late for a call with a social worker who wanted to put me on a waiting list for something that might help if it had existed. Silk had pulled behind my teeth, the way it does after a hard night. You swallow without thinking. You do it now automatically. You just did it reading this. I drank water to move the web along faster. Restriction only makes you notice the throat. I took 3 big swallows. The silk didn't dissolve. It slicked, it slid, it moved where it shouldn't, down the wrong pipe, and my chest locked, and I coughed, and nothing came, and my vision went dotted, and I stumbled to the sink and retched, and a rope came out of me. white and stringy, and I grabbed it because you grab ropes and I pulled. "Stop," she said, but it came anyway, feet and feet, warm from my throat, and my eyes poured tears, and my nose did too. And when it finally came free, it had a small tremble at the end like something alive had been attached, and then wasn't anymore. I lay on the kitchen floor and panted, and it smelled like oranges. I gagged, and she soothed, and I lay with the rope across my chest like a lanyard. "I told you," I said, stupid as a child protesting bedtimes. "I told you not to," she said, and the entire house seemed to sigh. After that, she made thicker ties behind my molars so I couldn't forget. She knows I forget. That's why she keeps me. A week later, I woke with a taste that wasn't silk. Iron. I ran my tongue along my gums and felt something lodged like a popcorn skin but bigger. I coaxed it with my fingernail and a spider leg came out, jointed and glossy, then another. A body followed, soft and deflated, like someone put a balloon over a skeleton and then took the air out. It had been there 2 days, maybe. I had missed it. I felt ashamed the way you feel when someone you love catches you with bad breath. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it for everything. "You still here? Good. Look, I could bullet point the last 6 months for you, but then it would sound like a report, and the world has too many reports." I was unemployed. I fed her. I starved a little. I slept. I had days where the holes closed enough for me to want to clean the stove. I had days where the holes widened and the work of lifting a cup felt like hauling a net full of fish onto a trawler by myself. I tried to read. The words slipped. I sat with the fridge friend, the sister, the crown-eyed, on the other side of the crack, breathing in rhythm like an idiot doing Lamaze with the wall. "Soon," my queen said in my head, and her voice was tight the way a violin string is before it snaps. "Soon what?" I asked. "Soon we will be family," she said, the way she'd said 6 paragraphs ago, 6 years ago, and I believed her because she is right about a lot of things and because I wanted to belong to anything that wasn't a hospital. I found a new place to hunt. Not alleys. The underpass by the river where the girders sweat and the concrete sings with cars. Spiders love the edges. They love vibrations. The webs there had geometry that made me want to kneel. I did. I cupped them and apologized and took the ones I needed and thanked the ones I left. A man living in a tent watched me and said, "You eating those?" I said, "Yeah." He laughed because people laugh when you give them a free shock. "You do you," he said, and I did. One night at the underpass, I met the nurse from the hospital by accident. She was walking fast with a tote bag and a coffee and a face like a drawer of folded shirts. She recognized me, and that glow of awful recognition passed between us. "How are you?" she said, and I said, "My holes are being knitted because it's better than giving strangers your chart." She tilted her head and said, "Good, the way you say good, when you don't need to be part of a story anymore." "Do you have support?" she asked, and I said, "Yes," and tapped my ear, and she flinched and walked on. Her shoes clicked like a spider body falling from a shelf. The orange smell came more often. In public places, on buses, in the grocery store, masked by floral. I think once you tune to a frequency, you hear it in every song. I obeyed Rule for as best I could. If you ever see a man step out of supermarket line and stand outside counting like he's defusing himself, it's me. My favorite rule became Rule 3. Don't count past 8. It made me feel like I lived in a world where limits mattered in a good way. 8 was a fence. 8 was a mother's "that's enough," said with a soft hand on her wrist. It saved me the night. I came home with 12. It had rained good. The underpass had been profuse. I had 4 extra wriggling in a jar like coins. I wanted to give her everything. She whispered 8, and I obeyed, and I set the 4 by the fridge because that's how you make family happen in the right order. I hadn't meant to make 2 families. It happened anyway. The sister's web brightened like someone put a lamp behind it. Imagine a white sock stretched tight on a dryer door. Imagine seeing the world through that. She began to hum, a vibration through the floor up my spine. My queen vibrated in answer. Talk, but not words. You're going to tell me you anthropomorphize, and I'm going to tell you to eat a clock. You never met a vibration you needed to talk to. It spoke more often. The house became a throat. I slept and woke to tremble and stillness like the ocean turning on itself. I started sleeping on the floor in the kitchen because being equidistant from my head and the fridge made me feel like a bridge. On a Friday before midnight, the building heartbeat stopped. Not really. The heat system cut off, but it felt like the heart. I panicked and sat up on the kitchen tile, and my head rang. I felt silk taut in all directions like a tent in a wind. Now, she said, and I realized soon had become now. And I wanted to laugh because that's how life works lately. You call everything soon until now is on top of you like a building. What do we do? I asked. Rules, she said, and I looked at the post-it and the Q-tip trophy and the incident reports, and I felt stupidly obedient. Cover the mirror, she said. Count to 8. Which one? I asked, because that's funny when you're terrified, and she didn't laugh. Our 8, she said. Not hers. I closed the bathroom door. The towel was already up. I counted. 1. The smell of oranges rolled hard in the hallway like someone had opened a giant peel. 2. The fridge motor tried to turn and clicked and failed. 3. The hum from the wall became a buzz, then a tremble you could feel in the soles of your feet. 4. My eyes watered in reflex. 5. Blink slowly, she said, a note like a hand on the back of my neck. 6. The silk behind my teeth lifted like a curtain in a small wind. 7. Don't say my name, she said, because I wanted to grab her with a word. 8. Everything moved at once. The thread inside my ear pulled not inward, but outward, the way you pull an anchor you buried too deep. I felt the air in my ear canal change temperature like the door of a freezer opened. Something crawled, not down, not up, out. Her. She came. She wasn't the palm-sized thing you imagine. She was small, black, with the 6 beads on her head like a crown, and also she filled the world because scale makes no sense when your entire nervous system is a room where someone else decides the music. She walked along the helix of my ear, paused on the lobe as if acknowledging a doorway, and then descended by a thread I couldn't see until it shone in the kitchen light like a hair. She touched the tile. She kept a line to me, a tight whisper, then let the thread go slack, released it, and it retracted, and she stood without tether, as alone as anything ever gets. I'm here, she said without sound, and the fridge sister thrummed like someone plucked all her lines. I went to my knees because I didn't want to tower over anyone. My knees hurt. 60 kinds of stupid human pain, and none of it mattered because both families were now in the same room. They moved toward each other. Not fast. Queens don't hurry. The kitchen channeled every breath. Even the building held its breath. The crown beads met the crown beads, and for a second, I saw my mother's hands touching in church, and then they went still. I knew then, bone deep, what family meant in her mouth. It meant joining to be one thing by eating, not metaphor, not kissing. One would enter the other, or both would enter both. It meant new threads between threads that would then run back into me because I was the house they'd been tenanting. I thought, I am a cathedral, and this is the wedding and the funeral. You want to know if I tried to stop it? I didn't. You don't stop seasons by begging. Instead, I obeyed the last rule she never wrote: respect. I turned off the kitchen light because brightness is rude, even to people who don't mind bright. I sat with my back to the cabinets and wrapped my arms around my legs and pressed my forehead to my knees so they could have privacy. It felt like the world slung a hammock, and I climbed in. When I dared to look again, there was only one. Bigger, not by mass, but by force. The sense of her in the room had shape like air sometimes does before a storm. She turned to me, and I saw both crowns in one, 6 beads brighter than onyx, what with the memory of being inside someone. She walked up the cabinet, across the handle, to the counter, to the legal pad. She stood on Tuesday's box and waited until I tore the sheet off and put on the fridge with the others. Then she went to the wall and disappeared into the crack, then came out and looked at me, then went to the baseboard and paused by my foot. She wanted both. Family, she said. Not a question, a designation. I bent, and she climbed the thread she had left earlier, which had reappeared as if conjured, to my ear. The warmth flared, my vision white-edged. She moved in, and the thread tightened like a line connecting a tin can to another tin can across a yard. I sat very still until she was in the skull, and the hole she had made to leave sealed behind her with a little wet sound like tongues. After, I cried. Not grief, not joy, the kind of crying you do after pain, when your body can finally afford the salt. She softened. She hummed me to sleep in a way that isn't a lullaby, but is the feeling you remember when you hear one later in an unrelated store. When I woke, morning had messed the kitchen, crumbs on the counter, a thin coat of condensation on the fridge where my head had leaned. The Post-it looked stupid and perfect. The Q-tip looked like a white bone. The incident reports looked like gossip. The legal pad looked complete. Nothing was. The hum on the wall had gone remote, like a TV on in a neighbor's house through drywall. My head felt crowded. That's not right. Full. The way a room feels after everyone you love has arrived with coats and noise and smells, and you are suddenly both host and guest. She said, "We're family," and I said, "I know," and I also said, "I miss hot dogs because sincerity needs ballast." "I don't like them," she said. "I know," I said. She wove. The holes softened. The days felt stitched. The outside world kept being stupid on schedule. The social worker left a voicemail about a group I won't join. Garrett texted me a photo of a spider in a urinal at work with the caption, "Your mom," because he is permanently 13, and I deleted it and didn't block him because not blocking is the only kind of forgiveness I can do for free. Sometimes I feel legs in my gums. I coax them. I don't pull much anymore. I blink slowly. I don't say her name. I don't drink water until the silk dissolves if I taste it behind my teeth. The mirror stays covered. When the orange smell rolls, I step outside and count to 180, and when I come back, we are fine. The underpass webs grew thick. I stopped taking from them so much. Respect is a resource. I bring them the bodies of houseflies I kill against the window glass. They take them the way relatives take casseroles at a funeral, polite, unspeaking. The sister in the wall quieted, not gone, just steady. The house feels like a net hung in a sensible place. I tell you this part because it proves fate has a sense of humor. 2 weeks after the joining, the pet shop called. Not Joe, a kid. "We have a shipment we can't keep," he said. "Do you want?" And he trailed off because he had been told not to say spiders. "Yes," I said, and walked there with a jar and a mind to be decent, and give some to the fridge, and some to her, and some to the underpass. And the kid handed me a cardboard box stamp with cartoon crickets, and it hummed. "Someone didn't secure a lid," he said. "They've been getting out." I felt the quake in the cardboard like heartbeat. I heard my own heartbeat too, and hers, and in that little stack of pulses I heard a choir. I took the box home and put it on the counter next to the legal pad, and I cut the tape. The smell that came out wasn't oranges or dust or chemicals. It was sweet and damp and like the inside of cucumbers, green and clean and alive. I tipped the box, and 100 spiderlings poured out like a handful of pepper. "Family," she said, and her voice warmed every line of silk in me like sunlight through a bottle. "Family," I said, and didn't flinch when they ran across my wrists and up the cabinets and toward the wall and toward my head. I knew some would be food. I knew some would be more. I knew the rules would change. They always do. That's what living is. You write rules because sometimes the holes are too big to fill with hope. I put a new Post-it up next to the old one. It's the same yellow because the grocery store never changes. I wrote new notes in my ugly hand. Note, if you hear tiny tapping at night, it's okay. It's just learning the house. Note, don't be afraid of the new silk. It belongs. Note, count to 8 as long as you can. If the number changes, write it down and don't argue. My handwriting is worse. The holes widen. She keeps knitting. Some afternoons, I fall asleep on the floor in the spot where the tile is warm from the sun through the window. I dream of my mother peeling an orange and handing me the spiral of peel like a stream of ribbon. And I say, "No, Mom, that smell makes the silk brittle." And she laughs and says, "I know," and hangs the peel from my ear like a new citrus crown. When I wake, I can taste the tang on the back of my tongue, and the silk comes, and I don't drink water until it dissolves. And I sit very still, and I listen to the house and the web and the little feet learning where the edges are. If you came into my kitchen right now, you'd see the Post-its, the Q-tip, the legal pad, the dumb hot dog magnet like a saint's icon of an appetite I won't indulge. You'd smell dust and coffee and a sweetness I can't name. You'd see the fridge a little out from the wall, respectful distance like a chair pulled back so someone can get by. You'd hear nothing at first, then the building's heart, then the string noise of silk over silence. You want to lift the towel from the mirror in the bathroom. Don't. I'm not kidding. Leave it. You'd look at me. My eyes might be a little stitched at the edges if the light hits right. I'd say hello in a voice rough from not saying names. I'd show you the rules if you wanted to see them. They are simple and stupid, and they keep me. Tonight, I'll eat one or two because she is generous. She lets me share. The crunch is still the worst part. I never got used to the crunch completely, even if I said I did. Sometimes legs get stuck in my gums and I pry them out and it keeps me occupied. I sleep with my face in the pillow sometimes when the silk tickles. I miss hot dogs and my mother. I count to 8. I obey. She's excited because soon we'll be family as well, not just in theory, but in the way the web teaches itself to hold a body like a fly. I think I'm excited too. I think I've been excited for years. That's the part one didn't say out loud until now. If you think I'm a monster, okay. If you think I'm the softest thing you've ever heard that's still standing, okay. I'm telling you because you asked and because it helps to say the rules out loud like prayers. Never use cotton swabs in the right ear. If silk is behind the teeth, don't drink water until it dissolves. Never count past 8 when you feed her, even if you have more. If the smell of oranges shows up, leave the room and wait exactly 3 minutes. Don't say her name out loud. If you wake up with webbing over your eyes, blink slowly. Don't pull. Keep the bathroom mirror covered after 3 a.m. I tape the incident report to the fridge because even lies need a place to live. I put the Q-tip next to it, and it has yellowed like a tooth. The new post, it curls at the corners. The silk behind the fridge gleams when the sun finds it. The lines in my head hold. I'm going to sit here a while and listen. She's working. The kids are practicing. The house is warm. The holes are quiet for now, and the web is beautiful, and it's ours.